Good morning, my name is Ola Tamanova, and it's my pleasure to see everybody who joins Ukraine Media Center Ukraine Forum. It's year 10 of the war and day 579 of the full-scale invasion of our homeland by Russian aggressor. And now we will be talking about the situation in Zaporizhia region. Joining us online is the military governor of Zaporizhia region, Yurii Malashko. Good morning, Mr. Yurii. Good morning. Mr. Yurii, let's start our conversation with the security and humanitarian situation in the region. So, what is it like? Well, first of all, within the last day, the servicemen of the Russian Federations inflicted 149 shellings on us, on 23 settlements of Zaporizhia region. The enemy mostly used cannon artillery, 129 shellings. They were also using MLRS and UAVs. We had about 17 reports on destruction of the residential buildings and infrastructural facilities. Fortunately, we have no casualties this time. Mr. Yurii, talking about the period from the beginning of the full-scale invasion, what can we say about the aftermath of such strikes and the casualties among the civil population? Well, we understand what is the aftermath. Mostly is the civil infrastructure that is mostly affected along the front lines. We have about 7,000 reports of destroyed residential buildings that require renewal or repair after the victory. Talking about the humanitarian component, for the time being we don't have a catastrophe. The humanitarian situation is all right in all of the settlements, including those along the forward edge of the battle area. Well, talking about the critical infrastructure, what is its condition and what is the condition of preparation for the winter season? Well, most of all, we pay attention to the protection of the critical infrastructure, the sheltering of those facilities that requires it the most. Such facilities are already protected. Many of them are protected. We are sort of ready to the enemy attacks, but we understand that if the enemy uses weapons like the types that they were using recently, like S-300 ballistic missiles and UAVs, well, we will try to do our best to preserve all of our infrastructural facilities to go through the winter season more or less normally. Mr. Yurii, getting back to the topic of shellings, we understand that the Zaporizhia region is being shelled very intensely lately. Is the evacuation of population still underway from those settlements that are the closest to the front lines? Well, sure, this work is still underway. As you know, we implemented mandatory evacuation of the families with children from 2 districts. Thanks God, there's only 1 family remaining with a child in Gulaipole, but I think we're about to evacuate them as well shortly. But on top of that, the task is to evacuate the people of age. Some of them just don't want to leave, they refuse to leave. But in cooperation with the police and local communities, we do everything we can to evacuate them. There are places for evacuation. We evacuate them to Zaporizhia district and the city of Zaporizhia itself. Mr. Yurii, are there any news from the occupied territory? Recently we were hearing about the explosions in Tokmak, for example. So what do we know about the operations of our guerrilla teams and resistance movement and about the life of our population in general? Well, talking about the resistance movement, it does exist and it's very intense. The occupiers see it and they oppress our citizens in all ways possible. Those citizens who remain loyal to Ukraine, and after the so-called elections, the oppression and persecution still continues, specifically with regard to the people who still have the Ukrainian passports. from some settlements, the people are banned to leave using Ukrainian passports. Also, there is a humanitarian catastrophe going on there, specifically along the front lines, because we have information that there are no food supplies, no water supplies coming to that area. However, our Ukrainians are courageous people. They wait for the armed forces of Ukraine to come, and they do everything they can to facilitate the work of the armed forces. Well, it came to our attention that after the elections, or so-called elections, in the occupied part of the Donetsk region, there was a censure imposed on all the correspondence and telephone conversations. Do you know anything about this? Well, we are neighboring on that region, and I think all those measures are being taken in the occupied parts of Zaporizhia region as well, but there is also information about the ban of use or prohibition of use of WhatsApp. The people are being checked their cell phones in all the checkposts, so the enemy checks for all kinds of information, and I think the situation is the same in the Zaporizhia region. Thank you very much. We have questions on the floor. Good morning, Valentina Rikal, Ukrinform. Mr. Yurii, can you please comment on the curriculum process in the Zaporizhia region? Because given the constant and incessant shellings and air raid alerts, even online education is not quite efficient for those who remain in the Zaporizhia region. So what are the measures taken to improve this process? And maybe you have some approximate statistics of what is the number of school children remaining in the Zaporizhia region. Thank you. Well, look, talking about the children, they really study online. We don't have any other format of education. It was implemented starting from the 1st of September due to the security situation. You know that S-300 missiles, for them it takes 40 seconds from the launch site to reach the city of Zaporizhia. So due to the security situation, we have implemented the online format of school training. If our armed forces advance a little bit further, we will review other formats of education. So what we do and what we don't do. Most of all, we pay attention to the shelters that are located at the secondary education facilities in compliance with the resolutions of Cabinet of Ministers and the President of Ukraine as to the development and for the outfitting and use of the shelters in the education facilities. Unfortunately, again, due to the security situation, we are not able to use them to the full extent because 30 or 40 seconds is very little time to get down from the third or even second floor down to the basement. Well, and our children are studying online, even those who stay in other regions, so they continue their curriculum process. We understand it may not be as efficient as it should be, but given the situation, this is the only thing we can use. On top of that, there was a defense council meeting where we were hearing to the representatives of the community, I mean our parents, the parents of our school children, who appealed to us with a request not to prohibit for the children and the teachers, if they guarantee the security and safety of the children during air raid alert, not to stop the curriculum process. I think that the decision will be taken today after lunch, and there will be a relevant press conference. So what you mean is that the educational institutions will decide whether to stop or to suspend the curriculum process during the air raid alert or not. Yes, it's not prohibited by the law. Thank you, Mr. Yurii. Then the question about the situation in the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, has it changed? What is the situation like? For the time being, the level of radiation is in compliance with the standards both in the city of Zaporizhia and in the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant as well. Now one reactor is in hot cooling, and the rest of the reactors are in cold idle, so there are no reasons for concerns. But again, the enemy keeps using the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant as a platform for storage of weapons and ammunition, and they continue shelling our peaceful settlements using the nuclear power plant as a launch site. Thank you, Mr. Yurii, for joining our broadcast. Dear colleagues, I'm reminding you joining us was Yurii Malashko, the military governor of Zaporizhia region, and our next briefing will be at 12 o'clock. We will be talking about the situation in Lviv region, and we'll find out how Lviv region is preparing to the winter period. So stay tuned, and let's continue working together for the sake of our victory, and let's thank our security and defense forces. Glory to Ukraine.